Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ground Control, where we talk all things outer space here on Queen City News Plus. I'm meteorologist Andrew Brightman. I've got, of course, my wonderful co-host, executive producer, space fanatic Matt Campbell. Now, unfortunately, we've usually got a great guest
Right.
talking about something interesting going on.
Mhm.
This case, unfortunately, no. It's all the story about what happened here on Thursday, May 28th, which
Mhm.
was an explosion on the Launchpad static fire test of Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket. It was obviously not a successful test here, Matt.
It went boom.
It went
They
boom
call it in the industry, they
and
call it
an anomaly.
yeah, in this case, it was a big ding dang explosion. So, they were just doing, like you said, a static test. They
Yep.
had the rocket tethered or actually clamped
Yep.
down
Not going anywhere.
to the launch pad, and they just wanted to test the engine, see how they do. Well, this is what they did.
A big explosion potential. I've seen estimates here 2 to 300 up to 1 kiloton of explosive power here. I've seen videos online of people flying into Orlando
Mhm.
and being able to see all the way over to Cape Canaveral here and seeing the red glow of the explosion. Just a huge explosion here. And this is just a setback. Now, they were trying to send payloads for Amazon's own satellite constellation,
Mhm.
as similar to SpaceX's.
Mhm.
And so that's gonna be a major setback. I've seen estimates here probably could take upwards of a year, Matt. They
Mhm.
gotta repair the launch pad. They gotta figure out what happened wrong
Mhm.
with the anomaly and then try to get back to launching again. But it's not just with Amazon and their satellite constellation they're trying to build here, but also potentially the upcoming Artemis missions could be thrown into jeopardy as well.
NASA planned to use this New Glenn rocket to launch test moon landers, which were going to go into Earth orbit next year. And Artemis 3 crew was going to test these things in Earth orbit to see if they would work there before they try landing them on the moon. Blue Origin was going to have a lander up there. SpaceX was going to have a Starship lander up there, all to be tested next year so they could make that targeting date of 2028 for a return to the moon, landing people on the moon again. This
Yeah, it's gonna be very, very interesting to see how long that takes here. I wanna quote, this is the statement made by NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman on the night of the incident. NASA is aware of the anomaly that occurred tonight at Launch Complex 36 involving Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Space flight is unforgiving, and developing heavy launch capability is extraordinarily difficult. We will work with our partners to support a thorough investigation of this anomaly, assess near-term mission impacts, and get back to launching rockets. We will provide information on any impacts to the Artemis and moon-based programs as it becomes available. And that's going to be something that, we're going to be waiting for here because you were talking about it being very complicated here in
Mhm.
terms of SpaceX's idea of how they want to try to get some of the landers to the moon. That's one of the reasons why NASA wanted to kind of have multiple contractors or partners here to try to have two pathways
They
on
wanted
getting
a
back
fallback.
a fallback
Yeah.
plan on getting to the moon here. And so this is one of the fallback partner, and potentially again it's going to be very interesting. Estimates I've seen here, man, is roughly a year
Mhm.
of setting them back before they could even launch. And they just got to, besides figuring out what went wrong, they got to repair the launch pad.
They have to do that, and they then have to test the next New Glenn rocket to make sure it doesn't do the same thing.
Yes.
They've got that's gonna be a long testing process too. Um, it's just a big setback because if you think about other accidents that have happened, the Columbia disaster,
Yes.
2003, the Challenger explosion in 1986,
And
going all the way back to Apollo 1 in
and then
1967.
I think there was I think one time this is more recently there was a Falcon 9 launch that was going to be sending up refueling items here to the International Space Station. That exploded. Actually, it caught first they had to figure out what was wrong, but then also that was going to be important resupply to the International Space
Right.
Station that they had to then wait for, Matt.
Mhm.
So it's just there's different things going on here. Interesting little tidbit that this occurred at Launch Complex 36. This is being described as one of the largest sort of explosions on the launch pad that
Mhm.
we've ever seen here. The previous largest was an Atlas Centaur rocket back in the 60s at this exact same launch complex, man.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that, and I've also seen, there's videos on the YouTube, uh, the YouTube, that show, Russian, Soviet rockets exploding. There are some huge ones
Yes.
that have happened, and sent up a mushroom cloud like this one
Yep.
did. There have been people killed in those cases. In this case, we're not seeing any reports that
No, and I'll just read a statement here from the founder and the head of Blue Origin, that is Jeff Bezos. All personnel are accounted for and safe. It's too early to know the root cause, but we're working to find it. Very rough day, and we'll rebuild whatever needs rebuilding to get back to flying. It's worth it. He is fully committed with it. He was actually doing an interview not too long ago with CNBC where he thought that Blue Origin, because he founded that, I think, back in 2000 is when he founded Blue Origin here, almost kind of in the
he
earlier
had a
time.
few, spare dollars to do.
Spare dollars, but even then, that's still really relatively early in the life cycle of where Amazon was at the time. But he's really passionate about space as well, almost a similar way the way Elon Musk is. And he was asked, like, do you think it's taking longer, longer, shorter, or what you expect? Said it was going quicker than what he expected. It'd be very interesting if he would have the same answer to that question. But he was very confident in how Blue Origin was progressing with this New Glenn rocket here, and then also Blue Moon, that we're going to be using these rockets to get to orbit and eventually get back to the moon. So just a bit of a setback here, Matt, and it's just going to be interesting to see how Blue Origin moves forward, and then also how NASA moves forward as well, because Blue Origin is a very important partner for them.
And it could take months before we know anything
Yep.
that we could even know when they're gonna start launching rockets again. This was the only launch pad where they could launch the New Glenn. Blue Origin has a facility out in West Texas where they can launch the New Shepard. That's where they send the tourists up
Yep.
on a short flight up into space, coming back.
Fake space.
But that launch pad there is not able to handle a New Glenn. This was supposed to be a heavy lift rocket.
Yeah.
And that's why you got such a big
And
explosion.
again, it's real space to go over the Kármán line, but in terms of when I say real space, orbital.
Right.
Basically, you go up. You have to re-enter the atmosphere to come back, and to have that type of rocket, you can only do it at this one particular place. And yeah, just hoping they get stuff fixed here, man, and we'll see what's really ahead here for both Blue Origin and as well as the NASA program as well. So that's going to do it for us here on Ground Control for Queen City News Plus. Wanted to give you an update here on the latest with that explosion of that New Glenn rocket, with that static fire test. Everyone is safe and accounted for, most importantly. And then hopefully they can figure out what happened and get back to launching rockets relatively quickly here. For my co-host, executive producer Matt Campbell, I am pinpoint meteorologist Andrew Brightman. Have yourselves a great rest of your day and great rest of the week.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.